Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about Volvo 2. So, let's get into it. So, how are the person who found Volvo... So there were actually two people that found Volvo. And no, I don't mean like the parent company, because they didn't found Volvo. They bought them from Ford in 2010. I mean, the original founders of Volvo. So there were two of them. The first one was Assar Gabrielsson, and the second one was Gustaf Larson. And these two guys founded the company on April 3rd, 1927. They had a really interesting dynamic between each other. You know, Assar was a guy who wanted to build cars for rich people. He came from a family of like really wealthy industrialists, while Gustaf Larson was more of a populist, and he wanted to build cars for the common man. Now, at this point in time, Sweden had a lot of like car manufacturing companies, but none of them were focused on the lower end market. Everyone was just making cars for rich people. And that's where Volvo comes in. Assar Gabrielsson originally joined a company called SKF, which was a ball bearing manufacturing company. And he worked there with Gustaf Larson. Then they decided to leave SKF and go to another company called Vabsa, which was also a ball bearing manufacturing company. But after they left SKV, Vabsa filed a lawsuit against them because they tried to steal some clients. And so they lost the case and they were forced to close up shop. However, while they were at VOVs, they met someone named Axel Oddfrid, who was an engineer, and he introduced them to this idea of anti-friction bearings. And this was a revolutionary new technology that was coming out of America, so they saw this opportunity to start their own business. And this is what led to the creation of Volvo. Now, even though they started the company together, Assar and Gustaf had different views when it came to the direction of the company. Assar was more interested in building luxury cars, while Gustaf was more interested in building affordable cars for the mass. This tension would eventually lead to the split between the two partners. In 1935, Gustaf Larson would pass away, leaving Assar Gabrielsson as the sole owner of Volvo. Okay, now you might be wondering, why did they name the company Volvo? Well, the word Volvo is derived from the Latin word volver, which means to roll. Now, this is kind of ironic because Volvo is actually the only major car manufacturer today that does have 4 tires. But anyway, when they were naming the company, they didn't know what kind of cars they were going to build. So they just went with something that sounded cool, and they thought it would be memorable. Little did they know, it would become one of the most recognizable car names in the world. Alright? So now that we know how Volvo was founded, let's talk about why Volvo was founded. Now, the main reason why Volvo was founded was because there was a need for affordable cars in Sweden. At the time, all the cars being manufactured in Sweden were expensive, luxury cars. And this was not meeting the needs of the market. Most people couldn't afford to buy a car, so they were forced to use public transportation or just walk everywhere. Now, I know this sounds crazy today because cars are like super cheap, right? Well, it's not always been this way. Cars used to be a luxury item, just like TVs and refrigerators, and they slowly became more affordable over time. Anyway, Assar and Gustaf saw this gap in the market, and they thought they could fill it by manufacturing affordable cars. They believed that everyone should have the opportunity to own a car, regardless of their income. And they wanted to make that a reality. However, there was more to the story. See, while Assar and Gustaf wanted to make cars for the masses, they also wanted to make sure that the cars were safe and reliable. At the time, there was a lot of competition in the car market, but none of the manufacturers were focusing on safety features. Everyone was just trying to make the cheapest, most basic car possible. And this led to a lot of accidents and fatalities on the road. Assar and Gustaf believed that this needed to change, and they wanted to be the ones to do it. They knew that if they could make a car that was both affordable and safe, they would be onto something big. And this is exactly what they did. Volvo became known for its safe and reliable cars. And this helped them to become one of the most successful car manufacturers in the world. Alright, now we know why Volvo was founded. Let's talk about what company they are coming from. So, as I mentioned earlier, Volvo was originally owned by Ford Motor Company. They purchased Volvo in 1999 for $6.45 billion. And this was during a time when Ford was on top of the world. They were the second largest car manufacturer in the world, behind only General Motors. They were selling millions of cars every year, and they were making a ton of money. So when Ford bought Volvo, they were thinking that they could use the brand to expand their presence in the European market. They also thought that they could use Volvo's expertise in manufacturing small cars to help them compete with other manufacturers in the US, like Honda and Toyota. However, none of this really panned out. Volvo's small cars were never able to gain any real traction in the US market, and Ford ended up losing billions of dollars in the process. Now, the main reason why Ford was unable to make Volvo successful was because they did understand the brand. Ford is a very American company, and they were trying to force Volvo to make cars that appealed to American consumers. This meant that they were asking Volvo to compromise on its safety and environmental standards, which was something that the Swedish company was never willing to do. Eventually, Ford would get so frustrated with Volvo's unwillingness to compromise that they put the brand up for sale. And this is when Geely came along. Geely is a Chinese company that was founded in 1986. When they first started out, they were just a small manufacturer of refrigerators and washing machines. However, they would quickly expand into the automotive industry. And this is what led them to acquire Volvo from Ford in 2010 for $1.8 billion. Now, this was a huge deal at the time because it was the first time a Chinese company had ever acquired a Western car manufacturer. Many people thought that China was buying up all of our important industries, and this was just another example of that. However, it turned out to be a great move for both companies. Geely was able to get their hands on a well-established car brand with a lot of history and prestige. And Ford was finally able to get rid of a money pit that was costing them billions of dollars every year. And since then, Volvo has gone from strength to strength. They've released a bunch of new models that have been very well received by critics, and they've become one of the most popular car brands in the world. Now, when Geely bought Volvo, they made a promise to keep the headquarters in Sweden and to maintain the brand's commitment to safety and environmental sustainability. They also promised not to interfere with Volvo's operations, giving the new management team complete control over the brand's future. And this has worked out very well for both parties. Geely has been able to stay out of the spotlight and let Volvo do all the talking. And Volvo has been able to continue doing what they do best: designing and manufacturing safe, stylish, and environmentally friendly cars. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Let me know what you think about Volvo in the comment section below. Are you a fan of their cars? Do you think they're overpriced? And do you think they'll continue to be successful in the future? Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.